We're live. I think it's probably the worst one today on being on time,
Oof, a little
and
bit.
we're totally okay with that. We showed up. You know what? We showed up, and that's all that matters.
That's all that
So,
matters.
um, so let's get started. What is up, guys? Thank you for tuning into the Modern Macho. This is your host Juan Carlos, and I'm here with my boy Santi.
Yo, what's up, everybody?
We are two gentlemen documenting our journey. We're embracing the dudes that we are in order to become better men for ourselves and our village. We're tired of fitting the mold. We're tired of the dick measuring contest. And we're tired of pretending to be somebody that we're not. After each episode, we hope that we're able to plant a seed, get you to start a conversation with your circle, challenge your thinking, motivate you to focus on growth, and hopefully bring awareness to the twisted programming that we've been brought up with believing. Today, we have yet another special guest. We took a little bit of time off because we had some personal stuff going on, and between work and just things that we had going, we had to set our own boundaries, and as usual, we had to practice what we preach, which is what we're very adamant about, right? So, but we're back. Really excited for today's conversation. Really excited for today's guest. But first, as usual, bro, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Yeah, like Carlos said, a lot of things have come up. Not bad, by the way. Like, I think all really good shit. Carlos and I were just talking earlier about how like stars are, seeming to align to some extent on multiple fronts. And so I'm really it's funny. I feel like oftentimes I think when we're met with positive things, um at least myself, I can speak for myself, I tend to become really like skeptical. Like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? Sums
Yeah,
up here.
yeah,
you know um like, this is just out of my comfort zone in a sense. And part of me wants to challenge myself and say, no, you've been working on the building blocks, and just because you haven't been looking at the big structure, you can't be surprised where, like, if maybe I'm at a point where, like, I'm hitting a big milestone, right? And so I'm really trying to keep that positivity and practice that, as uncomfortable as it is, because I think, as we've mentioned on this podcast, I think, as men, we tend to shit on other people, but it's typically because we're shitting on ourselves a lot of times. And
projecting.
so right now I'm really trying to practice on just loving myself, and and appreciating that hard work that I've put out there. So yeah, dude, I'm excited for what's to come. More specifically, I feel like I'm being like hiding in the shadows, but I'm actually we're gonna be moving out of Long Beach. I actually found a nice little full-time job out at Riverside, and so this is more of a temporary position, a move up. I'm nervous as fuck. Uh, I'm like, dude, am I gonna hack it? And did I just bullshit these fools in the interview into giving me a job? And I'm telling myself that I'm bullshitting myself if I believe that, because I
Yeah,
know I have a lot to offer, and so, but it's still the nerves, like, right? And so I gotta it's time to perform, right? So yeah, in a month I'll,
oh
I'll be
yeah,
moving out to Riverside. So June is gonna be a motherfucker of a month, but I'm looking forward to, man. But how about you,
yeah,
man?
yeah, dude. I
How
mean,
are you
I
doing?
told you this before,
Yeah,
but like I said, man, congratulations, dude. I'm
I
excited for
appreciate
you.
it.
Um, I was thinking you mentioned like being skeptical about the high, and like this is temporary, and I always think about this, how much we struggle with positivity in our lives. And I
Yeah,
say that because, like, when we're going through shit, and I guess I'll speak for myself, when I'm going through some shit, I don't think I ever tell myself like, hey, this is temporary, it's gonna be okay. It just feels like you're gonna be stuck in this fucking hole for forever, right? But for some reason, when it's something positive, that's when it's okay to be like, this is temporary, this is not, we're not gonna have this for long, right? It's like
yeah,
there's this comfort for me, and it's not where it used to be before, but I reflect and I think how much comfort there used to be in keeping that negative mindset and being stuck in like this suffering type of mentality where, and it's not even suffering, like not of a victim type thing, but more just a struggle,
right.
right? Like struggle means growth, struggle means
Hmm.
happy, struggle means getting better,
Hmm.
uncomfortable, and like there can't be any level of peace in my life,
Yeah,
because if there is, something's up,
Something's
something's
up.
going
Yep.
wrong, and like you said, it's
Mhm.
only temporary. So I find that very interesting, and I think as we've gone to know ourselves through this journey, it's something that really sticks out to me. How sometimes it is hard to embrace those things. But you brought up a great point, which is you manifested this, right? This shit didn't fall out of the sky, dude, and
Yeah.
the nerves will be there. But I'm excited, dude. I'm kind of going through something very similar too. Just doors are opening. Shout out to Carla Morrison, dude. She reached out to me on
Hey,
DMs, bro. That was
bro.
great, oh, bro. I was so nervous as I was like DMing her, and then I
That's
decided
good.
to shoot my shot on collaborating,
Left
and
you on red,
she
dog.
left me on red,
It's all good.
which is
No shade, no
totally
shade.
cool.
Yeah,
No,
of
no
course.
shade, not at all, man. She's a busy individual, but I think just the fact that she took a second to acknowledge our work,
Fuck yeah.
um, and even for me to take a second and to thank her too for being a voice for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mentioned to her the NPR episode. She was very vulnerable talking about what the
Mhm.
pandemic did for her and how
Yeah.
she went into a little bit of a cave, and so now to be performing live in front of people again for her was just such a huge thing, right? And the impact that it creates, and her just being herself, right? And I love that. So it was cool for sure to have that moment with her. It was very surreal. um, and so yeah, outside of that, man, just dad life, chilling, went fishing, got motion sickness the whole time.
Love
But
it.
we pushed through, caught our first fish, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is why people spend all this money for these fucking 2 minutes, or 30 seconds more like it, of
Yeah.
fighting this stupid fish when I could have just gone to get some sushi down the street. But it was cool. These last 2 weeks. So Julian finished up school. He finished school today, actually, but he's been done academically for the last 2 weeks. So they've been fucking off, really. Doing their pizza parties and their hangouts with their friends and choir concerts and award ceremonies, and they had a guest reader, secret guest reader, so he didn't know that I signed up. So I was able to get off
Oh.
work from home, and I showed up to the school and read to the kids. And so um, a lot of working from home these last 2 weeks, which I just feel so grateful for. I realize that it's a privilege to now be able to do that. And it's crazy. I don't think we talk enough about even the guilt that I carried for a second, where I almost wanted to be grateful for it, but then it was like, nah,
Mm.
bitch. Like, you don't get to fucking deserve you, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't get to
Yeah.
enjoy this. Like, you should be fucking working 12 hours a day. You shouldn't, because for the last 10 years I haven't been able to. It's been those long drives. It's been the traffic. It's been doing a lot of those things. So I almost felt like wanted to belittle myself and not feel like I wasn't deserving of it. And so I'm just glad that I was able to acknowledge that, give that a little bit of love, and then move past it and be like, you know what? I realize that I do have a privilege here to be able to spend this time with my kid,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do the best of it with it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And more importantly, I'm not gonna not do it to not have that quality time with my kid, which is the most important part about that. So yeah, man, just been feeling very blessed. Again, I think things are falling into place little by little. Um and we're manifesting this. I think it's a reminder for both of us right now to keep at it, right? To keep at it. I think in those moments where it seems like we just want to fall back into our routines, things like this are reminders of like, dude, this shit's it's taking time, it's taking practice, but we're headed in the right direction. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, man.
Most definitely. Fuck yeah, dude. Well, as you mentioned earlier, we have a very special guest tonight, who I'm
Yes.
excited to have on once again. It's always a pleasure talking with this extraordinary gentleman. So tonight we have Leroy Mitchell who's going to be joining us, and so just to kind of give y'all a little bit of a scoop as to who Leroy is, he has an extensive experience in working with traditionally marginalized communities, in particular young men of color, with through education, career, and identity development. Leveraging his work as a college counselor and personal experiences as a former college athlete, Leroy builds communities, trains schools and organizations, and holds spaces where people may develop healthy ideals of self and masculinity to manifest their full selves and lead healthy lives. So, without further ado, let's get Leroy in here. What's up, Leroy? How's it going, man?
What's up, man? I mean, just I'm like I didn't even I feel like I'm disrupting the flow that y'all
No.
Nah, 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 none
and
of
I was
that. None
like,
of
yeah,
that.
I was taking notes myself. I was like, yeah, that's a bar right there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for thank you for just allowing me to be present, be in community. Like before I was like, has it been a year already? Right. And
Yeah.
since the last time we've spoken, it's like, yeah, it has. And so I'm excited, man, to just talk about like just the year in review with you too. You know what I mean? I think this year has provided so much opportunity for growth for me personally. And so I just want to, share space with you too. And let's rap about it. Let's talk about it, yo.
Yeah,
Love
no,
that,
most
dude. Love
definitely,
that.
dude. And I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, man, I feel like ever since our last conversation, I really enjoyed our. I mean, I enjoy every time I get to speak with you, right? I mean, we've kicked it a few times, like in person, and I feel like every time, I get this real sense of peace, a real sense of genuine love and conversation in all of our discussions. You bring a lot of knowledge to the table, and I know I just feel that you have so much to offer, especially when it comes to topics of like men, mental health, communities of color, right? And so it's always a pleasure to have you on. And in addition to that, I think one thing that Carlos and I have seen, even in our guests, oftentimes our guests are female, and that's no shade to
Yeah.
them. That's not like, that's just an observation, to be honest, and so um, I think it's always a great opportunity to have a man also come on here and talk about men's mental health, right? Because not only are we, that, like, I used to have this saying where like we're not experts to the subject, only subjects to the matter, right? And I think that's really what we are. But in that sense, we do have that um maybe more keen insight as to the struggles that we go through.
Yeah, totally. I mean, someone says, yeah, I tried to lift that 300-pound weight. If I've never had to lift that, if I've never attempted to lift that 300-pound weight, there's an understanding that I don't have, right? There's context that I
Yeah.
don't have, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I would say I'm extremely lucky, universe, God, whatever floats people's boat, whatever, however, their relationship, right, to the higher being or to spirituality, to the universe is, honoring that. But I say I'm very lucky to have met people like you two, Santi, Carlos. So I think a lot of times it's safety, you know,
Mm.
safety to explore, safety to say, what if, right? What if these things that um, I've been practicing my entire life, what if I could do it differently, right? What if I am somebody differently? What if there are pieces of me that I have yet to explore, right? And really leaning into that curiosity. I mean, it takes safety, it takes trust, and it takes vulnerability, right?
Hmm.
And I think, when y'all were speaking earlier about like, dang, just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know I can definitely resonate with that because for me, reflecting upon it, it's like it takes vulnerability to have hope, right?
Hmm.
It
Mm.
Yeah.
takes vulnerability for me to look at the positive, right? It takes a opening of myself, of my spirit, to have that trust, right, in the universe, trust in myself, trust in others, trust in the process, right? Those four things. And so that's really hard. That's really
Yeah.
hard. Um, and in my experience, it's like the more I try to avoid things, the more I resist, the more it persists. Right. So
Mm.
I fulfill the fear, right? The things that I've been avoiding, right? I mean, I fulfill them, right? When I don't lean into the trust, lean into the
Mhm.
vulnerability, lean into the process, right? Because when I'm not, I'm focusing on and I'm really manifesting the negative, right?
Mm.
It's like, oh no, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if all these negative things happen? It's like that's what I'm manifesting, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I got some stuff too, bro, to tell y'all that just went down with me. So,
Oh.
like for real, I've
We
been
Mm.
listening. We listening, bro.
to work, fam. I've been about to work, living into it. We are the work. So yeah, I'll stop there. I mean, whatever reflections y'all have or comments, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it,
no. I mean, it's funny you say that because like you're right. I think oftentimes we are thinking about like, well, what if this? What if that? What if that? And it's such a comfortable mindset, you know. I always think of I don't know. Have y'all seen Are y'all Marvel fans? I don't know if y'all have seen fucking Infinity War.
oh yeah.
No. So yeah, one yes, one no. There's a part where there's like this wizard type action hero character where he has like this like a fuck like wicked type powers where he like essentially what he does, you know, because they're kind of in a shit situation. He's trying to figure out solutions. So he goes into his mind and goes into all the possible ways that they could
Oh shit.
solve this shit, right? But he starts doing this head dance type thing. Like he, you know, it's just kind of a
Yeah.
weird thing. They're like, "What the fuck did you do?" He's like, "I went into all the universes and saw all the possible outcomes,
Yeah.
and only one, whatever." But the
He was
point
like
is,
1 out of like 3 million. He was like, there's
yeah, like 1 in 3
Oh
one.
shit.
million.
So
Yeah,
it's
he
like
was
a shit ton
like,
of different
3 million.
possibilities.
There's only
Exactly.
one where this works out.
But
Right.
like when I saw this fucking scene, I was like, dude, I feel like that's me sometimes. Like
Hmm.
I'm just like pausing. I'm not doing anything, but I'm just thinking of all the negative shit. Obviously it's different context, but yeah,
Yeah.
that scene just resonates with me. When it comes to that, right? When it comes to like us feeding into that negative shit and how it affects us, I think.
Yeah, totally, man. And I know for me personally, it's like I, for the longest, even to this day, my birthday is in June 4th. I'll be turning 30. So damn, right? But 29 years in this body, I'm comfortable with the sadness. Like that's what I know, right?
Mm,
I'm comfortable with the stress. Right? It hurts like heck, and
mm,
I'm disconnected from myself, right? But that's what I'm used to. That's what my identity is based on. My identity is based on being a provider. My identity, especially as a Afro Chicano person, right, is to persevere, be resilient, XYZ, right? Look out for the family, right? So how am I going to do those things if there's no struggle,
mm,
right? If there's no struggle for me to grind against, what am I then, right? And I think for me personally, like this past month or these past 6 months, I finally had the opportunity to ask myself, who am I without the struggle, right? Who am I
mm,
without these things? And I mean, I'm falling in love with who I am, with the relationship I have with myself. Like that's something that I'm fostering, man, and it's been amazing. And again, it's been scary, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, focusing on that positive, bro, and putting that into universe. It sounds cheesy as heck, but it's so real, fam.
Nah, we're both past that now, bro. I would have said it's cheesy like 2, 3 years ago, but I hear it now, man. And you know what's crazy too is like we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but cultural awareness, right? And I say that because I think sometimes that sadness that we carry, that struggle that we carry, is how much of it has been by choice, right? I think a lot of where I'm at right now, I think being aware of my privileges, being aware of where I'm at in my life, that there are choices I can make for the struggles, and I can be very intentional. But not all my struggles are like that, right? And like you're saying, a lot of this identity, a lot of the things, whether it's been your environment or family, just so many factors, right, that contribute to what our struggle can look like. Um, and making peace with a lot of that too can be very difficult, right? It's a very difficult pill, I think, to swallow. But something that you mentioned too, Leroy, that I think is huge is it's it's not going to go away, and at some point you're gonna have to get to know those parts of you, right? And dude, so I had to, when I was having the motion sickness this last weekend, I feeling all nauseous, and like I've reached a point now where as soon as I start to feel nauseous, I yak.
Mm,
Like I'm just like, oh, this shit feels uncomfortable. And for some reason, for me, it was like it created this like analogy where I felt like that's how feelings are. And I think before is like, or like I would get super drunk, right? And I'm like, once you take that shot down and it don't sit, right? And you're like, I'm gonna just keep swallowing, or I'm gonna like take a chaser or something till it goes away, and it doesn't. And what ends up happening an hour later, 2 hours later, sometimes 5 minutes later, you end up puking that shit out, right? But you have to face it. And I guess I thought of like my growth, and for me, it made sense where I'm like, damn, I'm literally at that point in my life now where as soon as I start to feel that nauseous, or in this case, feelings, I can just embrace them on the spot now. And it's like, oh, let's not avoid this because we're gonna have to face this at some point, you know? And as you said, that's so scary, you know. But it's also, bro, and this is where I want to give you some flowers. It's also a very brave thing to do. Like it, talk about men encouraging each other to do some fucking like badass, brave, strong type shit,
Right.
right? And it's like this is the real brave shit right here, is being able to sit down and feel those things.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Feeling those things is so, I mean, because it's like literally in our bodies, right? When, you know, you mentioned, bro, when you said there are parts of us like that hold these feelings, um, getting into the mental health aspect of it, right? I've been working with my therapist personally, and there's this concept of internal family systems, right? Or IFS. And it's created by Dr. Richard Swartz. There's a book called No Bad Parts that breaks it down. I'll link it, we'll link it, etc. Right.
Yeah.
But essentially is what it says is there's a true authentic self for us, right? And we see this true authentic self show up in 7 ways, or what Richard Swartz calls the 7 C's, right? So there's confidence, right? We're confident, we're in our bag, we know what we're doing. There's clarity, we know the way to go, right? There's calmness. I feel calm, I don't feel anxious, I'm not worried about whatever, right? There's compassion, so I'm able to give myself grace. I'm able to give
Mm,
others grace, right? There's connectedness. I'm connecting to other people. I'm connecting ideas in my head, right? I'm building communities, right? And then there's 2 others that I can't think of right now because there's 7 of them, right? But we see these 7 C's show up in people who are present with their most true selves, right? And at the same time, throughout our lives, as we grow up, as we are developing ourself, right, there are instances in which we experience trauma, especially men or masculine folks, when we're taught that there has to be an emotional severing, right? Like if you show your emotions, you're not a man, you're weak, you're X, you're Y, you're Z, whatever, right? So when we're showing our true selves, right, it gets denied. And so there's a part of us that is created called a protector, right? And so that protector is present with us from there on out to protect that harm, right? To protect that hurt, right? And so those protectors, they are always with us, right? And so these protectors show up in many different ways. So one protector could be like, avoiding, withdrawing, right? That's a protection.
Mm,
Another protector um could be getting angry, right? Lashing out, right? Another protector could be using substances, right? To numb and to dull, right? Another protector could be overthinking things, right? And so when we experience hardships, when we experience things that stress us and make our those wounds vulnerable or open, our protectors come in.
mm,
And we and our true selves become blended with these protectors.
mm,
Right. So for example, for me, um 2 weeks ago, my partner and I we got into an argument, right? And at the time I wasn't aware, but I have 3 protectors, right? So one is called Angel, right? So Angel is the one that withdraws or the one that people pleases,
mm,
right? And I have another one called Tyrone. Tyrone is like saying, man, if you don't get the F out the house, like hell no, they don't know who you're messing with. Like, do you know who they are? Do they not know who you are? You're the shit, etc. Right? And then I have Nigel, and Nigel is the one. Nigel just sounds like a smart ass name. Like my name, smart ass, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like Nigel, and Nigel tries to overthink and question my decisions all the time, right?
Mm.
And so, you know, I was like, I got to get out of here. So I just left the house, right? And my therapist was like, okay, so what parts are speaking, right? What parts are influencing you, right? And are you living into your true self? Are you really showing self leadership? Were you calm in that moment? Did you have clarity? Were you connected, right? Did you have compassion towards the other person? I didn't. It's like, okay, well, then who is in control right there? I was like, well, Angel was like, yeah, you need to get out of there. And then Tyrone was like, oh, yeah, you need to freaking blow everything up. Like, you need to go do XYZ to prove how man enough you are, right? And then Nigel was like, do you really want to do any of those things? Because what do you do? And then I was stuck, right? And so I think a big part of it for me is like asking those different parts of ourselves. How old do you think I am? Right? And Angel was like, I think you're 14. Tyrone was like, I think you're about 16. Right? Nigel was like, three. You're like 3 years old. Right? And it's interesting that for Angel, for Angel thought I was 14 years old because at 14 years old, I was experiencing suicidal ideation. I expressed that to somebody, and they said, if you don't shut the F up, I'm going to kick you out. Right.
Mm.
So the protective measure there for Angel was to withdraw, to hold everything in. Right. At 16, Tyrone thought I was 16, 17. That was because um, I experienced something that was really tough, right? But instead of, talking about it, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to grind. I'm just going to grind my ass off, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be valedictorian. I'm going to be the strongest. I'm going to be the whatever, blah, 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 right? And so that was Tyrone's maladaptive strategy, right? And then Nigel has just always just been an asshole. I don't know what's going on with Nigel. Right. And so the thing is like being honest with ourselves and telling those parts of us that, like, hey, I'm 30 years old. You can trust me. I'm going to take care of all of us. Right. And having those vulnerable conversations with ourselves and acknowledging those moments in time where we were hurt, where we were harmed, where we didn't feel safe to be fully present and to express our emotions. Right. And say, like, now I'm going to take care of me. I'm gonna love myself. I got this, right? And that like is like that's freaking. I know that was long. I just wasted like half the episode, but
No,
um,
you're good, bro. You're good. You're good.
wild stuff and like you gotta read the book because there's like meditations or different ways that you can access those different parts of yourself, and it's wild that like those parts are there, but because I have been so disconnected from my body, I had no access to them, right? But once I was
Mm.
still, once I was present, and once I gave myself permission to feel all those things, those parts of me were like, yeah, we're here and we've been waiting on you, and we got a lot of shit to say, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's been wild, bro. I mean, it's been a journey for sure, dude. So, and that's not even the wildest thing that's happened to me in this past 6 7 months. So yeah, but
I mean, but that's I feel like that's some real shit. I think part of it. I mean, I haven't read this book. I'm really intrigued. First of all, because I think there. I mean, we just so one of the books we just read is Four Agreements, right?
oh yeah.
And so that book, I think we're in a book club through this platform,
Hmm.
and there was, there wasn't, I don't think it was as in depth as like the book that you're reading, but there were so many points where I know that different people had different moments of like, I guess they were able to press pause and just take a look at themselves, right? Just assess, who am I? Why am I responding this way? Because I think even just doing um that simple action of just allowing yourself to stop and look at yourself is really difficult, And I think, like in what you just explained, it sounds like these protectors, they've been running the show, and it's just they're just handing you off and you have no idea. You're on autopilot, right?
Yep.
And the moment that you're able to really connect with yourself, and I guess, be present, be calm, be mindful, all of these positive traits, is when, like, once a protector tries to take over, it's almost like, wait, something just happened right there, let me assess, right, let me look into who what the fuck is going on. And
Right.
I think that there's so much power in that, once again, and I think, like, all of these, I don't really know the sources of your self-help book, but I know even with ours in the four agreements, there were so many times that we, there was experiences there that were enlightening, and still, like, there was also questions, right? I know there was times that people were skeptical, even myself, right? Even myself, because there's times where I'm like, I'm hearing the message, but it's hard for me to see the finish line. It was almost my perception while I was reading the four agreements, or it felt, I know one of the words that got thrown around often that didn't sit well with some of our folks, was hokey. Was that the word, Carlos?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mhm.
and I know that there was sentiment there, um, uh, and I don't know. I mean, it's definitely an out there conversation that I think can be really easy to dismiss. Like right now, as you were talking, it's so easy to be like, "What the fuck is an angel? What the fuck
Yeah.
is a Tyrone? What's a
What you're
these are
talking
like,
about.
yeah, like, and it's not to belittle it, but I
Yeah.
also think that can be someone's protector telling them this is a bunch of bullshit, you know.
1,000%.
But I mean, anyways, it just kind of made me think of some of the conversations that we had in our book club. I don't know, Carlos, if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, and I think obviously, without going into details or anything of a lot of the conversations that we had in the book club, just being mindful of the boundaries and
Of
things like
course.
that. But I think we did go in depth more about those conversations, and I think it further it validates what we're discussing, which is just like what we were really trying to say and where was that really coming from, right? Like where was this, whether it was this is hokey, this isn't hokey, or I do feel this, I don't feel this, right? Because even now, I think with Atomic Habits, the one that we're reading right now, I think I have moments like that too. And so I think what's been really cool about the book club, and even I think us just having this conversation now, is going beyond that surface level conversation of it and kind of acknowledging where that's coming from, right? Or what is really happening. Because I think even just to say that as men, a lot of the harmful things that we're saying and that we're doing them to protect ourselves. It's kind of wild to think about, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is,
Yeah.
Hmm.
For
right?
sure.
Like if someone comes at me sideways and is like, "Hey, man, like, what's up? You in your feelings?" It's like, fuck you, bro. Like, I know, bitch. Like, what's wrong with you? And
Yep.
and I'm wrong. I'm wrong for the way that I'm being triggered and for the way that I was handling those situations because I made those choices. Um, but to validate that, I mean, I'm protecting myself. I'm scared, right? Like, I feel insecure. And like you mentioned, then you throw the layer of like, well, how is a man supposed to handle that situation? And it's no longer about what are the values that I want. It's what are they supposed to be, right? And I think a lot of us, it's very difficult to accept, to understand, maybe to even maybe have the awareness to look at the bigger picture here. But the reality is that we've been brought up with a lot of this stuff, and so we can't be blamed for that. What
Nope.
I do think is my responsibility for myself is the fact that I've upheld those beliefs, right? Like I didn't grow up and decide that I wanted I wanted it to be about sleeping with women for that to be my value. I didn't make that choice. I didn't. I did decide to uphold it, right? And into my adulthood, right? Maybe as a child, it wasn't something that I was like, maybe I never felt like I had a choice on that. It was just, this is what it is. I have to do this. But once I start becoming old enough and I start making my own choices, I realize that it's like you are deciding to uphold these beliefs
Yeah.
that a man is defined by the size of his fucking dick. That a man is, is defined by the muscles, by how many women he sleeps with, by how many men he can screw over, right? By how much money he has, like all those things, I made those choices. So, yeah, all this stuff that we're talking about to me is like, it's very interesting. And it's also such an interesting and I think a very real and very true way of putting it as this like protector. Cause it's hard to see that, right? It's like, this is how we've been protecting ourselves is by doing a lot of very, very harmful things.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, that resonates so much with me. It's like I think of emotions as I try my best not to label things good or bad, especially when it comes to emotions, because emotions are physiological responses. You know what I mean? What I like to
Mhm.
say is, am I experiencing a thrive emotion or am I experiencing a survive emotion? Right?
Mm.
Like anger, survive. That's a survive emotion, right? Insecurity, that's a survive emotion because my protector is doing XYZ, right? And then, Asante said it's like once we're able to name those things, that's when we have a choice. That's when we're able to be brave. That's when we can lean into our values, right? As you said, Carlos, but it's not until that we're aware, right? And we have those conversations with ourselves. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times I know myself, I'm scared because what if I go within and I don't like what I see? Right? What if I go in and all this stuff that I've worked for, right? All these things that I believe to be true, what if those don't align with my life and all the stuff that I've done already? What,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Those things are scary. And instead of, as I go back to the comfort piece of it, it's like I'd rather just stay in the discomfort of not experiencing my full life than to experience than to face that fear of what if, right? But unfortunately, yeah, we may not experience those very low lows, but we're not going to experience the very high highs either, because
Mm.
our body can't distinguish between good emotion, bad emotion, thrive, survive. It's like, okay, so we ain't fucking or we ain't messing with our emotions. Let's just cut them off. And let's
Yeah. Yeah.
we're cutting them all off because I don't know what to do, right? And it gets stored in our body, right? Like in November of 2022, right after Thanksgiving, I experienced a heart attack.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And yeah, Santi's like, dang, bro, what?
Dog, I had no idea, my boy. What?
Yeah, man. So I was playing, I was hooping with, well, I was having a disagreement with my sister the day before, right? On Thanksgiving. I mean, I was just harboring so much, right? I was working so much at my job, right? I wasn't, working out. I wasn't eating in a way that was nourishing to my body. I was holding so much stress, so much bitterness, so much resentment, right? And then I went to go play ball with one of my homies. And then halfway through, well, even the night before, I felt like a little tightness in my chest. I was like, that's weird. Probably because I ate like a whole pumpkin pie, whatever. But yeah, I went to go play ball. And I mean, unfortunately, I was having like the game of my life. You know what I mean? I had like 10 boards, like 4 assists. I was on my way to a double double.
Let's go.
But yeah, I just couldn't breathe, right? And I was just like and that pain in my chest just began to grow. And I was like, yo, I need to stop. And so I told my boy Louis, I was like, hey, homie, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go. Right. And I was driving and I was like, man, I'm tripping. Like, I know I'm experiencing this, but it's not like I can't be having a heart attack. I'm 29 years old. What do you mean? No way I can be having a heart attack. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
And so I was driving from Linwood to no, I was driving from Southgate to Long Beach. I stopped at Linwood and I was like, I'll just go to urgent care, like just whatever. Right. And so I went to the urgent care and they were closed. Right. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going home. And so, but I couldn't walk back to my car without like, bending over to get my breath. I mean, this some old, I mean, literally it feels like, a guardian angel. I don't know. But this old little Latino dude had to be in his 70s. Um, he walked up to me and I mean, he might have been houseless. He walked up to me. He was like, ¿Qué quieres, mijo? ¿Está bien? And I looked up at him and I was like, más o menos, right? And I looked in the mirror and my face was blue.
Whoa.
Right.
Oh
Like
shit.
my face was blue. And I called my partner. I was like, yeah, I'm having a heart attack. And so they were like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital ASAP, the emergency. So I went to the emergency room. I honestly don't remember how I walked to the emergency room. Um, yeah, I blacked out. But somehow, some way, I drove myself to the emergency room, got in there, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, you had a freaking heart attack. That could have been it, you know." And yeah, talk about like all the silly stuff not mattering. You know what I mean? In that moment, all that like being strong stuff, all that not feeling emotion stuff, all that, all that stuff, man. It was just like it doesn't matter,
It's a lot of weight, man.
right? Because literally in that moment, I would have given anything, like I would have given anything to just take a breath, right? Like
Yeah.
I've never wanted anything more than to just be able to breathe, right? And that really put things in perspective to me, for me, because it's like I walk around and I act like I value all these things. I value how good my job is. I value, you know, my pride, or like, oh, my family shouldn't treat me like this, whatever, whatever, whatever. Right? But when it comes down to it, the most precious things that I have is my breath. Right? And it's like, what, after that moment, I was like, really, what am I doing? Right? Like, who am I? You know what I mean? And it's wild that for the past 4 or 5 months, I've noticed that whenever I am um, feeling emotional distress, I feel it in the same spot of my heart where I had the heart attack, right? And so it's like no one can tell me that us harboring our emotions, no one can tell us that us trying to put everything on our backs, no one can tell me that having holding all these things within ourselves does not impact us and that we're not suffering, because we are, right? And I had a heart attack at 29 years old, you know what I mean? Like that is wild. You know what I'm saying? And so like after that, I mean that really just helped things me into respect, put things into perspective for me, bro. It's like all these things that we think matter are not as valuable as us taking a single breath at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean? So that's really kind of just changed my trajectory and been like, who am I? You know what I mean? And I'm loving the things that I'm doing now. You know what I mean? Can really get into my hobbies, get into my self care, and like literally falling in love with myself. You know what I mean?
Love that.
That's
Yeah, I
some
love that.
the work right there, homie. Yeah, yeah. So I know that was a lot. It's like, damn, dude.
Yeah, dude, I'm tripping out because yeah, that I mean, I had no fucking clue that had happened. Um, I think what's striking me right now is that I know you to be a very self-aware person. I feel like I see you as a person who is very self-reflective. Um, you know, I don't know how many people can reach self-actualization, but I feel like you're one of the people I know in my life that is at least aware of the journey and is willing to take on that journey. And even you saying when it all comes down to it, like you don't even know. Like you don't even realize what does it really like what like it's all that I'm valuing right now is taking a breath, being alive, and I think that that's still trippy because I mean for you to still have that realization just comes to show I think how valuable our lives are, and I think how often we really just do take it for granted, right? I don't know. I think that that's really what's striking me right now. 'Cause I think I'm still processing. I'm like, I'm wanting to like hug you right now, bro. Honestly, that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate that. Like yeah, I don't know who will listen to this, but to folks that are listening, I went MIA since November. Like
Mm,
I went, what do they call it? Like radio silent or
yeah.
whatever. Because, I and it was still work that I still need to do to even acknowledge that I had a heart attack. Because even then, Nigel was in my head. Like, oh, see, people are going to say that, you were overweight. People were going to say that you weren't eating right. People were going to say that you were weak for having a heart attack. You know what I mean? So, like, even then, right, even after my heart attack, even being in the hospital for 5 days, right, like, it was still tough. And I mean, I think it really, um, me getting to my hobby, me really finding a creative outlet has helped me be present, with myself, um, and love myself. And so, yeah, man, it's been wild. It's been a trip. Um, this is the first time, I mean, besides like my partner and like 4 or 5 really good friends, this is the first time I've, shared with anybody, you know what I mean, that I had a heart attack. And I bet people are like, damn, Leroy's such a freaking asshole. He never responds to my text messages. And it's like,
Nah,
like
man,
there's a reason, homie. There's a reason in time.
Mhm.
In time.
I'm I'm definitely glad that that you're here with us. Not only that you're able to process this, but just the fact that you're sharing it. I think what's really popping up for me too is I think all those thoughts that you had from this happening, about like your health and what are people going to say and all this, like it was interesting because I kind of processed a little bit of this too, even in the book club this last week, where I think those thoughts are very valid and I don't want to discredit that.
Mm,
Um, I also sit and wonder like who actually said that, because I think a lot of times those thoughts do dictate our lives. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Technically, you just told us right now,
yeah.
and we've shown like I literally just processed this right now, and I'm like, you literally just told us, and we're both showing you love. What you thought was going to happen never has. Like,
Nigel was
not
wrong.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so yeah, like that fool was wrong. Here we are. Here you are expecting Saw and I to be like, well, what are you doing to work out? What are you doing? And it's like we don't.
Yeah. And
That
it's like,
didn't even cross my mind, bro. Like I'm over here tripping out. Like I'm just so glad that you're here, bro. And I'm so sorry that that happened. You
yeah.
know?
I mean, it was so wild. Like the thoughts that we have, those protectors like Nigel,
Yeah, yeah.
Jerome, freaking, Angel, those thoughts they have such, and it's what my therapist calls it, is blended. They've
Mm,
completely blended with me, right? And so I can't discern what's mine and what's their thoughts. And it's so wild, bro. Like when I was in the because at the time, I mean my family, my sister and my dad, were good, we're way better now. But at the time when that happened, like I hadn't really spoken to them in like 5 months. And even when they came, so they came to the hospital, I was so scared, right, about the stories in my head of, oh my gosh, they're gonna judge me. Oh my gosh, they're gonna do X. Oh my gosh, they're gonna do Y. Oh my gosh, they're gonna say I'm not good enough, right? That the doctor had to give me morphine, right? Like the doctor
Oh
had to give
wow.
me morphine and put me to sleep because I was that anxious and my heart was starting to palpitate or whatever you
Just in
call
your
it.
head. Yeah.
Right. And the truth is, bro, all they wanted to do was come in and pray over me and love me. You know what I mean? And so it's like we definitely, our feelings are valid, right? Our
Yeah,
feelings are
for
valid,
sure.
but the stories informing them are a lot of times inaccurate. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And those
absolutely.
stories are formed from our past experiences, from our protectors, right? And so that's why, like for me, it's always
And this is where, because you bring up a great point, Leroy, and this is where I think it goes back to Santi bringing up the four agreements. And I know that him and I kind of talked about this. And if you haven't read the book, well, this is a spoiler. But one of the agreements is not to assume,
yeah,
right? And so
Mm.
this is where I feel like parts of it are true, right? Because that's kind of what we're talking about right now is like we're making a lot of assumptions, right? Like you're assuming that you're going to come out of the hospital and there's going to be so much gossip about what happened to you and everyone knows why, everyone figured out the answers and it's like, bruh, in that moment nobody gave a fuck other than just taking care of you, right? And
exactly.
so
Mm.
like that's where I do think, part of sometimes part of these this literature is good because it's like, this makes sense, like don't assume, like a lot of this has been created in my head. And then I think, as Santi brought up, sometimes though, and it's good. That's why I think it's good to question some of this stuff and to challenge it, because then there are also those times where I think sometimes our assumptions are based on evidence from our experiences. So just like you
Yeah,
said, right? Like you're protecting yourself, thinking people are going to judge you. Well, that came from somewhere.
it
Now,
did.
does that mean that that should run your life? No, absolutely not, right? But the truth is like I didn't just start thinking that I wasn't enough, or whatever. I didn't just start
Yeah,
thinking X, Y, Z
exactly.
because I fucking saw it in a movie or because somebody told me to think this way. Something has
Right.
happened that allows me. So, and to tell you the truth, bro, I think this is like what I admire and what I respect so much and love so much about what you're sharing is that I think that's the power in and the game changer is like Santi said, man, your awareness to understand those parts of you, getting to know yourself. And I think that's what it's about, right? Is like really getting to know ourselves to understand when you have those moments of like, oh man, people are here to judge me. Like they're gonna go, they're ready to they're just here to get the scoop on what happened so they can tell their friends,
Yeah,
right? But
exactly.
having that switch, that's kind of like, all right, cool. We thought about this, we validated it, we're done.
Right.
This isn't what's actually happening right now.
Exactly. And that's where like when the self leadership comes in. And I think that's why it's called self leadership, right? It's like, can I be compassionate towards myself and these protectors, these parts of me that are telling me, because, like, as you said, it comes from somewhere, right?
Right.
However, these protectors, they're 14 years old, they're 16 years old, they're the past, right? And I've done so much growth, I've done so much work on myself in the past. So, my true self, when I'm in my self leadership bag, right? That's why it's so important for me to know these parts. So I can be compassionate. I can be clear. I can have clarity. I can be like, is there actually danger for me right now? Right? Am I actually in danger?
Right.
Right? And I can have the confidence to put in the boundaries that I need to. Right? Like, and that's so important to have the confidence to speak our truth in a way that honors and respects others. You know what I mean? And it takes the self awareness, right?
Yeah,
It takes, yeah,
and it's so hard, man. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, because
yeah,
I'm also thinking like the discipline that it requires. Because now we can talk about it, right? And like we can reflect on it, and then we can acknowledge that part of your stresses that were happening as you're at the doctor are actually making your situation worse.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right? Like here you are trying to like, and how ironic it almost, not to downplay it and I don't mean like, oh, it's silly, but at the same
Sure.
time it's so serious, right? That it's
Yeah,
like, bruh, we are literally like fighting ourselves. Like we're trying to protect ourselves and ironically we are destroying ourselves at the same time, right?
yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy, bro. That's so crazy. And the
That's
discipline that it takes to go against that. Like I'm even thinking about just something simple. Like you see a lot of discipline about like the gym. right? About like, oh, being disciplined with your workouts, being disciplined, like a lot of the stuff that you see, I would see that there's a lot more exposure to currently, right?
Right.
But I even think about like the discipline that it takes to not fall into those beliefs in our head. Like
Yeah.
that takes so, because it's so
Mhm.
easy. Like I feel like even right now we're talking about it and we're like, yeah, it doesn't fucking matter. It's just, you're right, bro. You're right. Like who the fuck cares what people think about me? Who the fuck cares if people think I'm man enough? Who the
Yeah.
fuck cares if who I am is enough for them to love me? And I'm not saying it from a place of hate, but that's me telling myself like,
Yeah.
don't let those things get to your head, papa. Like they don't matter. You got this.
Right.
But now, am I disciplined enough to stick to those beliefs?
Yeah.
Right?
I think, yeah. And the, I think the discipline comes with, do I have the skills? Do I have the self-awareness skills?
I love that.
Because it's like, I'm not going to be able to run a marathon without training for it.
Yeah.
So we have
Mm,
to think and remember, like, males, you infants that are gendered as male when they're born, they're held half as much, and they're talked to half as much as babies that are gendered as female. Right? They are twice as likely to be disciplined physically.
mm,
Right? And so when we're growing up, when especially like those emotional, those are crucial years of emotional development, right? And so we haven't had that ability to emotionally develop. Like babies learn how to emote. Babies create emotional intelligence by us hugging them, right? By, us talking to them, by us showing them love, by literally playing with dolls. Playing with dolls teaches empathy in children, right? These are crucial emotional skills that, because of our gender, we don't practice and we're actually shamed for.
Mm.
And so here's
massive.
yeah, there's a concept called, well, there's our physical age, and then there's our emotional age. Those two are separate. Because if you think about it, look at the boss of a company. If something bad happens and they're like, oh, how could you happen? Like blah 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 blah. They're throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
You know, because if a 7-year old were to do that, you'd be like, oh yeah, that 7-year old is throwing a temper tantrum, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if I'm feeling jealous, if I'm feeling insecure, and I go to my partner, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna talk to you no more. You don't love me. Like you never care about me. Blah 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 blah. I'd be like, is this a 12-year-old kid? This is a 12-year-old emo kid right now, right? And so that's something that I've had to ask myself and say, well, what is my real emotional age? And
Mhm.
honestly, for me, my real emotional age, six.
Fuck yeah. I love that though. I
Like,
love that.
keeping it real. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
it starts with the core. So our emotions are in our body. So it starts with, even in this moment, if you're listening, what are you feeling in your body? Is your tummy tense? Are your jaws clenched? Is your brow like real furrow? Like are you really intense? Like are your shoulders up or are they backed? How are you sitting right now? Right? Are you in a position where you feel centered? It's being aware of our body and what our emotions are, what our body is telling us that our emotions are, right? Because I know with me, when I start to like grind my jaws, I know, okay, I'm starting to get anxious, right? And so I'm alerting myself, okay, I'm starting to get anxious. Okay, I think it's Tyrone. Tyrone's starting to talk to me. Okay, Tyrone, what's going on? No, I got this. I got you. Boom, boom, boom. Right. So it's those building blocks. You know what I mean?
And
Simple.
you know what's interesting about that is, and I'll speak for myself, but like I didn't understand those things for a long time, and I feel like my partners did. Right? Like my partner could be like, "Oh, like you know what? He's upset. He's upset because once he starts getting upset, he starts doing this." But like for you to ask me, like how, you know what I mean? I do now, but in those points in my life where it's like, how well do I know myself that I start to understand, just like you mentioned, right? Where, oh, I know that if I, if I start tapping the knee or if I start saying things a certain way or certain things, certain, that I start doing that are like, uh-oh, so we're getting upset or we're irritated or we're sad. We're frustrated. We're feeling lonely because it doesn't just have to be anger, whatever that could
Right.
be that I'm feeling in that moment. But there's
Exactly.
these triggers and these habits that start to happen, and I think more times than not, it's usually our partners or the people around us that notice them more than we notice them within ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
and you brought up something I also that I think is very important, which was, you're talking about like your emotional age, right? And that being of a 6 year old. And we're like laughing about it. I'm like, fuck, dude, I feel like I'm right there with you. But
Yeah.
I also, like, with that, I also want to validate something that we've literally been talking about for the last hour, which is how could we not have the emotional age of a 6 year old when we've
Exactly.
been held less, when we haven't been given the opportunity to feel, when we've been told how we're expected to feel or how we can't feel? So
Exactly.
I mean, I know we're not like throwing shade at ourselves for it, but like to further validate that, it's like, well, no fucking wonder it makes sense. Like it makes sense why we feel like we're not good at this because we haven't been allowed to. And I also think for the sake of accountability, for the sake of being in control so that we can grow, we haven't allowed ourselves.
Nope.
Yeah.
Some bar right there, bro. Yep.
And as we're talking about this, I feel like I've been seeing a ping pong match. Not between you all, but more between us and how we are dealing with these protectors, how we're dealing with
Yeah.
these whatever, right? These parts of ourselves that are there to protect. Anyways, my question is, and it's kind of to all of you, Leroy, I don't know what your thoughts are, and you've kind of alluded to it, but like, so is the point to relinquish these protectors? Because oftentimes, I feel like, as we talk about it, even, Carlos, you kind of gave that analogy of like these protectors harming ourselves in these certain moments, right? Yet at the same time, I know there's been times where my back's against the wall in life and my
Got you out.
protectors come out, and you know what? It fucking worked. It
Yeah.
got me through
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's messy, but I was able to survive. And you talked about like, are you thriving or surviving? Sometimes we need to survive.
Yeah.
At,
Yeah.
and at the
True.
core of it, at the core of being human, that's the most important piece, right? So I don't know like what you all feel about that, and
Yeah.
like just a few weeks ago, I was actually having a panic attack during an interview for the UCR gig, actually. And I had gone to the doctor a few weeks after, and I told them like my panic attack. They're like, "So what did you do in that moment?" Like, and I'm like, "Well, I went through with the fucking interview. What do you mean?" Like, you know what I mean?
Here we are.
But it's like, what, like kind of showing like how that protector can be an asset, but it can also like, anyways. So I'm just curious as to how you keep that balance.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's an amazing question, bro. And I don't want to get rid of my protectors. I want to love my protectors and I want to build a relationship with my protectors, right? Because the
Yeah.
thing is, and even when I have conversations with my protectors, I ask them, I say, is it okay if we have a conversation? Right? And sometimes they're like, yeah, we can have a conversation. Sometimes they're like, fuck out my face. Right. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Right. But, and I'm talking to like their actual people. Right. But there are parts of ourselves. It's our inner life, our inner family system. Right.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so, first thing with Angel, for example, I said, hey, Angel, may I talk to you? And then Angel was like, sure, but why would you want to talk to me? And you don't even like me. And I was like, yes, I do like you. And then Angel was like, why would you? And I said, because Angel, you work so hard for so long to keep me safe. And you love me so much that you're willing to do everything and work 24 hours a day to make sure that I'm safe. And for that, you're my road dog. I love you so much, right? And I mean, in the meditation, I was literally just like crying at this point. And then I asked the protector angel. I was like, "What's it like to work so hard?" And Angel was like, "It's exhausting." And I asked Angel, I said, "If you didn't have to, if you didn't have to work so hard to protect me, what would you rather do?" And Angel said, "I just want to have fun." Right. And so I was like, "Okay." And I asked, I said, "Could we have fun together?" Right. And Angel was like, "I would love that." Right. I said, "Okay." And so and so I'm building relationship, I'm building trust, I'm building safety with these different parts of me that wasn't given to me growing up. Right. I'm doing it differently. I'm doing the opposite of the reason why they're there in the first place.
Mm.
And so, yeah, man. I mean, after that conversation I had with my protector angel, like I fucking started a custom shoe business. So like,
Let's go. That's fucking sick, dude.
yeah, like I've been in my bag. You know what I mean? Doing it.
Yeah. So like I don't, this could be a whole other conversation. So I don't want to like open this can of worms, but honestly, I feel like this is kind of where for me, I think religion comes into play of like having conversations with somebody else type of thing. This is just my personal opinion. However, I also feel that I relate more with you, Leroy, in the sense of like instead of speaking with like an out outside source, it's like I'm speaking with parts of myself. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. To me, there's like kind of like a connection there a little bit.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and you bring up a great point, which is like what works for everyone, right? What puts us in a better place. And obviously, the shit that we've been doing hasn't been working. So fuck it, bro. Like, let's try some shit that's different, you know?
Right.
I love the way that you set that question up, Sant, because I'm
Yeah.
also as I was listening to Leroy and I'm reflecting on the things that I'm processing and even that you've processed, bro. And I'm thinking like I think it's dope that for the last hour we've been talking about the protectors. We've been talking about our shadow. But what I love is we haven't shamed it. Like we're looking at it and we're acknowledging like some of these parts are not the healthiest, but we understand that at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is to protect us, right? And so, yeah, I think healing for me has been looking at these demons for me, at this protector and acknowledging that it's actually something very beautiful
Yeah.
Mm.
that I need, and unfortunately, um, has not been given any love. And for me, it's like I'm essentially trying to build a fucking house on the beach for these dudes, so that they can chill and be loved and understand that they don't need to do the nasty shit that they want to do, right? The ugly things that they want to do and say the things that they want to say. Like, yo, we're not those things anymore. We're still gonna be here. We're gonna stick around. We're not going anywhere. But just like I'm growing, you motherfuckers need to grow too, and we're gonna do this together, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's it's giving the love. It's giving the grace. It's giving the consent. Right. Consent based practices that we weren't allotted, that we weren't afforded. Because who told us? Who gave us the option to be men, quote unquote? Like no one asked us really.
Yeah.
We were a ball was placed in our hand. We said you wear this, you wear that. You're gonna like this, you're gonna like that, right? And it's like no one. We didn't have consent to that. We didn't consent to the harm that we experienced, right?
Mm.
In our gendering, and we didn't consent to the racism we experienced. We didn't consent to the financial challenges. We didn't consent to any of these things, any of these hardships. And so it's super important for me to practice consent with my protectors, right? And show them that I
Mm.
love them so much. They're just as worthy of love
Fuck
and
yeah.
imminence. They have just as much imminence and inherent worth as I do because they're a part of me, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's why the book is called No Bad Parts,
Mm.
because they're all equally important. Just like every part of us, every emotion, every thought is part of who we are. And who we are is beautiful, special, unique, dynamic, and deserves every last bit of love, affection, care, community, compassion, confidence, clarity, gentleness, softness, everything.
Mm,
We're worthy of all those things.
I love that.
And that's how I'm trying to move in my life. Given, I mean, every day it's a fucking crap.
You're living your fucking truth, bro, and I think you're doing an amazing job at it, man. You're modeling it more than anything, and I think that's what's so impactful. And I know that as someone that you know used to love doing coke, that was drinking all the time, that was drinking and driving all the time, that was spanking their kid, that was constantly yelling because that's what I wanted to do as a father for my kid to be, super quote unquote disciplined because I wanted to know that when I was hanging out with the boys, I wanted them to see, look at this little soldier that I am creating that knows how to be respectful and knows how to be polite. Um, and to know that I went from that and it was possible to face those demons, and to face those protectors and understand that I could still change and I could do something different, and I don't like to share a lot of my story in depth, not because I'm ashamed of it or because I'm not trying to celebrate it, but because I know that, to your point, Leroy, like there's a bigger picture here. Like everyone has their own story, right? But I also think each one of our stories is powerful and it resonates. And I think sometimes it can give us enough fuel to understand that we are not alone and that we're capable. That we're capable. I see it now and I'm like, I'll be honest, if I listened or if I saw myself where I'm at now, 5 years ago, I would have been like, I could never be like that guy. I could never. I've made way too many mistakes. I've hurt way too many people to ever be half as decent as that guy. And I'm telling you right now, I've got a lot of work to do, but it's fucking doable, dude. It's
Yeah,
so doable.
yeah, dude. There's you saying that, there's this concept that one of my friends um shared with me actually like last week, and it's really just been like just rocking my world, right? They said that, there's four pillars of trust, right? So first there's the trust of self. Do we trust ourselves? Do we trust
Mm,
that we are worthy? Second, do we trust others? Do we trust our community? Are we vulnerable with our community? Right. Third, do we trust a spiritual being or a higher power, or do we intuition, whatever one calls it, right? That we are all connected in some sense. And then lastly, do we trust the process, right? And knowing that I don't even know, like, I don't know, I don't necessarily have a destination.
mm,
And I fall in love with the process, right? I don't know where I'm going, but I'm not lost
Mm.
because
I
I'm
love
right
that.
here. Because
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm right here, I'm within, right? And all these things that I try to reach out for, I can just come here. Because at the end of the day, all this stuff is taken away from me. What do I have left? My breath and my
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
And so that's really how I'm trying to move. Um, and shout out to Edwin for sharing me, giving me that context because it's really been rocking my world. Yeah,
Shout out Edwin, man.
yeah,
Loki, that shit kind of shook me right now too. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm not lost. That
yeah,
fucking slapped me right now.
yeah, exactly. Because we always have ourselves, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
man. We,
Yo, some cheese balls, I'll tell you that right now. No, actually,
that
hey,
pretty
bro,
much
I'm fucking cheese ball gang myself, dude.
a cheese
John,
ball.
say, Son and I joke about that shit all the time because I'm like, it's not about the destination, it's the journey, and I'm like, what, like I said, man, it wasn't that long ago that I'm just like, what the like, nah, what does that even mean, right? And then now being at a point where I'm like, yeah, I do have direction in my life, but we're here.
We're
We're
Mhm.
here. We are literally here. And that means that our life can go so many different ways, but I'm not waiting for that moment, right? I'm not waiting for that house purchase. I'm not waiting for the debt to go away. I'm not waiting for the award, for the graduation, for the degree, for the promotion, for all these other things that I'm like, they're good senses of direction. But at the end of the day, like, I get to sit in front of this monitor right now and talk to you guys and have these meaningful conversations and be present with it and think about nothing else but this conversation. I'm like, my heart's full as fuck, you know?
Show, man. That's what's up. It's like it's so one of my friends, another friend, it's like, oh man, I need to really appreciate my friends because my friends be saying some great stuff. That was like, you know, it's okay to be. I'm okay with being overwhelmed. I can be overwhelmed but still not be frozen, right?
Mm.
And so
Mm,
like we have a lot of stuff going on. You know what I mean? Life, bills, health, family deaths, you name it. And it can be overwhelming. And at the same time, we, as long as we're not frozen, right, we're
yeah.
okay, you know, and we'll be fine. So,
Yeah. No, for sure, man.
yeah, so,
It's
yeah,
facts, man. It's facts.
yeah,
Dude, I feel like we fucking shared so much tonight. Like, I feel like I'm feeling the emotional hangover. And I don't even think I shared a lot. You shared so much, Leroy, tonight. I'm so grateful for your transparency. I'm really grateful for the knowledge. Like, I don't know. I think you put me in a state of like, I don't know. Like I think I there's a big part. I think as a friend I feel speechless because obviously I care for you as a human. And I think there's a lot of emotion I'm holding on to right now that because I care for you, bro.
yeah,
And and I want you to know um that I value you. I think so many times about conversations that we have, and one specifically, and I think I shared this last time we spoke about like how ancestors speak to us, and in these really weird ways where sometimes we feel something and we don't know why and whatnot, and I'm bringing that up not so much to talk about it, but just to show you that when I speak with you, my ears and my heart is 100% open because you're that fucking person.
mm,
You're that motherfucker. And you know, I hope you live 100 more years, fucking. I know you say your 30th is just around the corner and you had this scary ass situation. Um, and just know, man, the world is a better place with you in it, man. So I just want to put that on the record. That's it.
thanks, man. I mean, I was about to say I'm not gonna cry, but if the tears come, they just come. You know what I mean? I received that, and I trust in the universe, um, that you know this was the place where I share, what happened, right? I mean, I think it's just everything happens for a reason. Um, that I share my experience, and that's because you two are so gentle, so trusting, so authentic, so genuine, so loving and caring. This was, I mean, I never knew like when I would share, and here you two come. Here Santi like, hey Leroy, what's up, bro? you know, Leroy, what's up, bro? You still in Long Beach? you know? And yeah, it's like, yeah, this feels right. So, shout out to you all. It's on it's a human, spiritual level, just so grateful for you two, for who you two are, for the lives that you have impacted, that you continue to impact, um, and the fact that y'all do the work. Y'all do this hard ass work. Y'all do this work. It's like, damn, what sometimes? And you know what? Y'all still show up. And the best ability is availability. and I can count on you two homies to do the work. You know what I'm saying? All the great wild stuff going on. I know y'all two are solid, and I can trust in you too. So I really appreciate that. You know what I mean?
Appreciate
And
the flowers, bro.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that, man, so much.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
it's funny. Sometimes I tell Son, I'm like, let's just say some shit to get canceled, bro, and then we can just fucking go back to just hiding in our caves, man. Is it? You know, it just. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for not only for giving me flowers, but for making me feel seen, for
Mm.
making me feel seen for who I am, right? Because it means the world to me, man. It really does. And there's definitely a vibe about you that I've always appreciated. That one way or another, the fact that we don't talk for a whole year, here we are sitting, maybe not in the same room, but we feel safe enough to have these conversations. And this is now me throwing it out into the world that we need to hang out, that we need to see ourselves in person, right? And we need to make something happen because uh, I think experiences like this just don't come by normally, right? And it's very beautiful. Again, I feel very grateful. I appreciate everything that you've shared. I feel very honored, that you've even taken the time to talk to us and share all these parts about yourself, because it is very powerful. And as you said, I think at the while being men of service, I know that we want to create a lot of change in the world and our communities and things like that. Um, and I feel like we're doing that by living our truth, right? And so you coming on here to share your story, to share your struggle, to be vulnerable with us, I think is very, very much appreciated, very powerful. And we thank you, man. We really, really do thank you taking the time to join us.
See there, bro. Much love to you all. And man, I be trying to hang out, but Santi never lets me know when y'all have like.
No.
Throw it on
Like,
him. I love that. I
No.
love. Also, I wanted to say, how you mentioned that you have friends that have a lot of cool stuff to say. I need you
yeah,
to talk to my boy Sant, because he could use some help with some wisdom, bro. We need some more wisdom, Sant.
yeah,
I
man.
know.
I know. It's like, come on now, let's do it. Let's
And
do
then,
it.
and then, and then Leroy's over here like, you're so nice. I'm like, Can we clip that? I need to send that to a couple exes, please. I'm trying to let them know I'm not a bad dude, bro.
Hey, yeah, man. Look, it's Gemini season, and it's like, the fuck boy is just like here. So one weekend, and I'm like, whoo, I gotta no bad parts. What is your name? I don't even know what this one's name is. Mr. Lightskin. I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Oh man, I love that.
This month be over already. I'm scared. What's happening? But
We
yeah.
definitely need to hang out though.
Yes.
Before we end this, I want to be mindful of the time, but before we end this, I want to invite our dads for a second. I know that I've mentioned before that I was doing a nurturing fatherhood training, right, to be a facilitator. Well, I've linked up with RUHS, the county, Riverside County, and we're making this shit happen. So we're starting actually on June 5th. So if you're listening to this live, or if you're listening to this when we put it out next week, if you're interested, it's a 13-week program. We're going to figure this shit out together. All right. We're going to talk about fatherhood. We're going to talk about how to show up for ourselves, how to show up for our kids, in a much better place. It's going to take a lot of bravery. It's going to take a lot of courage to do, but I'm confident that together we'll be able to make this shit happen. So if you're interested and you're near the Riverside area, we're going to be doing it Monday nights. I believe it's from 6 to 8:30. They're going to be providing food for us, which is going to be dope too. So come through, send us a DM. Please, please, please. I would love to see some of our dads show up, and be present with this. We also have our wellness workshop. It's going to be in Orange on June 17th. That's where we linked up with Healing Connections. We're going to do some breath work, some Reiki, a lot of shit that both Sant and I don't know too much of. We are not familiar with. We got a little intro to it a couple episodes back with Vidi and Renee. Um, but we basically are like, fuck it, man. We
Yeah.
want to leave as many doors open to trying some positive things, right? So if you want to join us, if you want to get involved, also send us a DM. If you'd like to sponsor, whether you're a business or an individual that wants to help with covering some of the costs for a man to come to this event, because we do have to rent a studio, we do have to have equipment for this to go down. Um, Send us a DM too. We can tell you how you guys can get involved and help support this message and help other men that are trying to better themselves. Um, for any of y'all that want to get involved with some book clubs, we're doing some readings, man. The book that we're currently on is Atomic Habits. We're a little into it, but not a big deal. We can get caught up on it. This is Monday nights at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. Another reason to send us a DM. So basically what I'm saying is there's more than enough resources that we are trying to provide for y'all and more than enough doors for us to try to be in a better place. So there really isn't any excuses. Podcast episodes are every other Wednesday night. So stay tuned for them. Keep those alerts on, subscribe, like, share it with some homies. And yeah, that's all I have. I'm gonna leave the door open for you two gentlemen to close us out with some fine words.
Leroy, you got anything?
Nah, just again
Where
gratitude.
can people find you, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, give us
What are we working on?
So yeah, so you can find me Instagram right now, Leroy Mitchell 5454 on June 4th. Gonna be launching my shoe website, my shoe company called Heart Kicks. So don't want to give too much away right now, but yes, follow me. And then yeah, we're launching it June 4th. Come get some, yeah, just rock with me. This has been beautiful. Thank you all so much. And I mean, everything I try to do is a manifestation of living within my values and living in love. So, and this space with y'all was uh, the epitome of that, really epitomized that. So, thank you all so much. And I'm going to be pulling up to the event in Orange.
Let's go.
fuck yeah.
And maybe if Santi ever invites me, I'll do the full thing too.
Let him know.
Damn. You know what? We haven't had one of those in a cool minute, so
Yeah,
I I promise. I promise.
it was, yeah.
I love that shit.
Damn.
Now he's going to
Um,
Riverside. We live 5 minutes from each other. Now Santi's going to Riverside.
I know, dude. Hey,
damn.
then we gotta make something happen. We definitely gotta. Yeah, now I'm gonna hit you up, bro. I'm gonna hit you up, and yeah, this is all gonna be in the past.
Record it. Record it.
It is
Yeah, it's hey,
recorded.
this is going live and this is gonna get put out. So for
Right.
sure it's manifested. There's accountability involved here, Leroy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to make.
We'll get on his ass.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm not going to make no assumptions, or agreements or whatever.
Leroy, who is telling you these things, bro?
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna be impeccable with my word.
Yeah, you be
And I'm
impeccable with
gonna
yours.
make this happen. I'm gonna make this happen.
I hate y'all. I hate both of y'all. Close us out, son. Send us home.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you all, everyone, for listening. And I do want to say once again, thank you to you, gentlemen. Thanks for having this space. I feel like, yeah, no, I held on to a lot of emotion. I know dude, that, whatever. It is what it is. I guess there's still shit for me to work on in terms of being vulnerable. I will say that. But yeah, I mean, if any of these resources that y'all heard Carlos talk about just a second ago, if they resonate with you, please, you know, show some courage. Be brave. Be that motherfucker that you say you are. But do it in a different way, right? Where you're
Yeah.
gonna be uncomfortable. You're gonna be in those spaces. I'll be honest, man. I'm gonna be there on the 17th as well. I, I, I don't know if I'm gonna be a part of all
I
these
know.
little
I
exercises,
have a
bro.
feeling I probably shouldn't sit next to you. Something tells me
Yeah, dog,
that we
because we'll
need to
start
be
laughing.
across
We'll
from
start
each
laughing.
other.
He's going to be
Yeah.
farting his ass off. He's going to finally release for the first time.
Yeah.
Years of shit just going
Yeah.
It's gonna be a thing. But yeah, man,
Oh,
and I promise you, don't make the assumption that you're gonna be judged if you can't go through some
true.
whatever. That's an
True.
assumption. We just spent an hour and a half talking about that, right? Don't let your mind beat you over. If you want to be there, allow yourself to be there, right? And so
Love that.
we'll be there waiting for you all, and hopefully you all are able to come through, show us some love, but more importantly, show yourself some love. So yeah,
Love
with
that.
that,
Love that.
yeah,
All right,
hope
perros. We'll
everyone
talk
has
to
a
you guys
lovely,
soon.
yeah. Have a
You
good
guys have a
night,
great
everyone.
week.
Peace,
Stay
y'all.
on, Leroy. Stay on.
Oh.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, bye bye.